So this has been a bar since 1889. I don't know what it was during Prohibition. I know the history goes back into the 60s that I know of. It was Mary Kay's Shoppers Lounge. So all of the husbands would come here and drink while the wives would go to Weebles and shop and all of the places. And then it was Lincoln Drinkin'. Then it was Tavern 33, and then it was the Shire, and then it was closed for a year, and then we opened in September of 2011 as the Green Lady. So growing up, my brothers all had dogs, and I had cats, and my sister had cats, and we all had hamsters and guinea pigs and rabbits and any little furry creature that we could have. So the cool thing is that since we don't have a kitchen, we can allow dogs in. I would like to allow cats, but I don't think the dogs would like that very much. So your furry friends are welcome here at the Green Lady as long as they're on their leash. And for our 5th anniversary, which traditionally the 5th anniversary is wood, 2 of our regulars who got engaged here, who have been married for 8 years now and have 2 children, got us a wooden plaque that says dogs welcome, people tolerated. And now outside on the front of the bar, it also says dogs welcome, humans tolerated. So bring your furry friend. Green Lady opened at a time that craft beer was really starting to boom here in Chicago, and worldwide, really. But we opened around the same time as Revolution and Half Acre and Spiteful and Beguile and Pipeworks and 18th Street Brewing. And so we were also at a time where the bars were starting to come up with ideas for a new concept called Craft Beer Week, and celebrate all of the breweries locally and the bars locally. And so one of our very first events was Sweet Home Chicago with Pipeworks and Spiteful and Beguile and 18th Street and all of the folks. And the relationships built on happenstance on all of them. My brother Justin worked here with me when we very first opened, as did my brother Nick. And Justin had come to me with a new brewery that was opening called Pipeworks. So we reached out to Pipeworks, and all of the young breweries at the time were self-distributing. So then we started carrying Beguile, and I reached out to the fellows over at Spiteful, email, and at the time they were brewing in 450 square feet. So they got back to me and said, I'm sorry, but at this time, that was when everyone was doing beer in bombers. And so Jason said, we couldn't really do any more distro. We just don't have the space to make enough for everybody that wants it. So I said, okay, well, when you do, let me know. And left it at that. And then there was a night in November, late December, actually. Some folks came in, and I was here working, and we started talking about beer, and they were just back from Michigan at Dark Horse for the Plead the Fifth barrel aged release. And one of the folks at the table went out to get that. I went down to get a bottle of Rodenbach that I had just gotten, some delicious Cajun cork Rodenbach 750s. And so we all started talking, and just talking about beer and philosophy of beer and all of that. And one of the fellows at the table says, well, why don't you have Spiteful? And I realized that he was wearing a Spiteful sweatshirt. And I said, well, do you guys work for Spiteful? No, we don't work for Spiteful, but you should have Spiteful. And I said, well, I've tried, but they don't make enough beer. And 3 days later, I got an email, and suddenly I could get a case of GFY bombers. And so 2 of those people, one of them actually now owns their own brewery. One is the head brewer of Barntown out there in Iowa, and the other 2 are, one is Beer Karma himself, and the other one is Cesar, a friend of the bar and of beer in general, beer knowledge beyond. Anytime I have a question, I hit him up. Like, what do you think about he's very much in tune with trends and knows what he's got his finger on the pulse of all of the beer, and that was 13 and a half years ago that I met those fellows. And now Brent is one of the owners of Saint Laurent Brewing, which we always have their beer on draft here at the Green Lady. Relationships are, again, not just for the person behind the bar and the customer, but it's everything. It's in a community, and I think that's, to bring it back, one thing that was really lacking in every sense in New York was community, and whether it was, the beer community or just community. New York is a different animal, so bringing it back to Chicago and having these relationships in the community, that it's not just the regulars, it's just everybody that keeps you going. The memorabilia is all memories. It's memories of folks that have come through the bar, places I've been, places folks have been, breweries that no longer exist, all of the beer cans, the nostalgia of that, and looking up and seeing a Billy beer, or like Genesee beer. There's a little can of old style, like old English up there. And some of it is from my travels, some of it is, I think, just representative of beer culture. Our Orval Lax, that's what I'm staring at over here, that we participate in Orval Day every year, that we are able to. There was a 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic, but and people bring me tin tackers from their visits to the Alchemist in Vermont. I've got a heady topper over there. I've got, when we first opened, there were 4 things on the walls. So now everything is just, this one over here actually was in the basement when I got the bar, and it's the 6 corners down here at Ashland and Lincoln and Belmont. And if you get in there really close, you can see that there's actually a hop store that used to be right over here. So some cool things. And this Green Lady sign, folks got together and got that for me for our 12-year anniversary. A bunch of regulars and friends of the bar and supporters of the bar and friends, just friends, and everybody surprised me with that, and they got to see me ugly cry for a little bit.
Talk to me about Malort.
So during one of our Sweet Home Chicago events, um, so Malort is not the worst thing you've ever tasted. Don't believe that. But that's what I heard. So from 94 to 97, I never had any Malort. There was no Malort. And I never tried it, because why would you want to try the worst thing that you've ever tasted? So when I moved back and opened the bar, one of my employees, Will, who was a master cicerone, kept trying to get me to drink Malort. And I was like, no, I'm not drinking Malort. So I always cheersed with Mezcal. And so one night we were doing a 5 Rabbit event, and everyone was here, and they were doing a raffle, and I wanted the hat that Will won. And it was a black 5 Rabbit hat. And he said, well, I'll give you the hat if you do a shot of Malort with me. And I said, no. And he's like, I promise you're going to like it. And I was like, I don't think so. And he's like, no, your palate is such, I think you're really going to like it. And I said, okay, fine, but I want the hat. So I got the hat. I did the shot of Malort, and he was right. I do like it. It not only is it, do I like the flavor profile of it, but I also like the fact that it's lower ABV, and it doesn't really have any botanicals or ingredients that alter your mood. Where whiskey can alter people's mood, gin alters people's moods. In my experience, it doesn't alter your mood. So it's a good shot for the bar. And then we just became synonymous with Malort. And there's another bar here in Chicago that is synonymous with Malort, also Nice Lounge. And one year we were going to do the 12 bars of Christmas, not Xbox, not to be confused with that or whatever that event in Wrigley is called. But we were going to do Brock's candy canes, local, and infuse them with Malort, and then there was going to be a pub crawl of the places that did the infused Malort. So yes, we're on board with that. So it was our first time doing the infusion. Before the pub crawl could happen, Lort sent a cease and desist and said, "No, you're not doing that." But we already had the infused Malort, so we still could serve it. And there was a change in legislation that you are allowed to infuse your own alcohol. So then, when that change happened, we were able to infuse, and so Alyssa, um, who works here, who is amazing, said, "Well, why don't we start doing more infusions?" And I said, "Well, okay, that sounds good." And then people started coming for the Malort infusions. And so for our 12-year anniversary, I had the brilliant idea to do 12 Malort infusions. So we did. And now on a regular basis, we have 4 or 5 infusions at any given time. And we have found that the Dad's Root Beer barrels make the best infusion, in my opinion. Our staple beers we always have are Guinness, Spiteful Alley Time, Duchess de Bourgogne, of course, Schlitz, Trumer, and we always try to represent, um, while we don't always have a specific beer from these breweries, we 9 times out of 10 that you come here will have Saint Laurent. Well, probably 9.9% will have something from Saint Laurent on draft. We'll have Art History on draft. We'll have Roaring Table on draft. We'll have Maplewood on draft. We'll have um, something from Microphone Brewing on draft. And if we don't have something on draft, we always have Half Acre Daisy Cutter in can, Revolution Anti-Hero in can. Um, so we try to make sure that we represent our local friends as well as our international friends. The Green Lady Ghost. She um, showed herself early on. There was feelings of something else being here, and the first night that I closed by myself, I started to go to the basement to go down the stairs to the office, and I felt something come over me. So I decided I didn't need to go downstairs that night, so I waited till the morning. Um, Several employees, along with myself, have seen things and seen her. There was a time when we used to have 30 drafts. So in our small walk-in, it was always a chore, Tetris fun, to change things over for events. So getting ready to do an event, you'd put all of the jumpers, you'd untap all of the beer that you before you're cleaning the lines, and a bucket came and spilled that just for no reason, which sent somebody running out of the walk-in. But there has been some research done by one of our former employees slash regular slash friend, that there was a woman that lived in the building that when we have seen newspaper article pictures of her resembles what we see near the jukebox. That's where she likes to stay mostly. But when you are in the basement, you definitely feel her presence sometimes too. And she's played tricks and locked people out of the merrily got locked in the basement one time. That was my Grams's, and my aunt brought that to me about a month after we opened, and it hung in my Grams's bedroom for as long as I can remember, and I hung it. And we used to have glasses here, triple Carmelite glasses and quat glasses, and I hung it, and my mom and my brother Nick were here as well, and I came around and I to see how it looked, and it came crashing down onto all of the glasses, onto the frame broke, it tore in the corner. So I don't know if that was Grams or the ghost or who didn't like it where we hung it. So I took it over and got the frame, the glass replaced and the frame fixed and moved it over, and she's been sitting there ever since.